Here. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Rules of Order Revision Committee for March 4th at noon, and it is 12 p.m. First start with a roll call. Supervisor Carey. Present. Clerk Flintoff, present. Trustee Brandt. Here. Office Coordinator Aiken. Here. Township Attorney Mariah Fink, not yet here, but on her way. And also present to help us is Barb Kalaja, Deputy Clerk. All right, adoption of the agenda. The proposed agenda is just to continue our review. I have handed out the black line copy, certainly in the packet. Uploaded is what is revised for those of you at home. Mariah was taking notes, as she will today too, of proposed revisions of the sections we went through. The revisions are incorporated into that, so they're just not highlighted. So the copy I handed out is the same, it just highlights the proposed changes. So is there a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
I'll make that motion.
There's a second?
I'll support.
Motion by Brandt, support by Carey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, motion adopted. Next up is public comment. This is the time for members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes on any matter under the purview of this committee. I see no members of the public here in person. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on Zoom? If so, please raise your Zoom hand. Okay, seeing none, there is no public comment. Next up is approval of the minutes. Thank you to Christy, our secretary, for drafting the minutes. They were distributed via email this morning. Want to take a moment, review?
I would make a motion to approve them.
Then there is a correction
Okay,
in the, and I printed them out, I don't know why they're not here. Yeah. In the beginning, under E1, it says no questions regarding the committee's charge. Flintoff recommended that township attorney be member of the committee without the right to vote. No discussion and no objections. Actually, Mariah did say she was not going to vote.
so you want to, so instead of no discussion, you'd like it to say Mariah
Township
concurs or township attorney think.
Let me make that
M
change.
think concurs,
No vote.
Yeah.
said she would not vote. Okay,
Yes, something to that
Okay.
effect.
right, okay. And then I'll cross out no discussion, but keep no objections.
Right, yeah. Is there word?
We were all in
Yeah.
concurrence. That's what we recommended, what we did, and what we. Okay, anything else?
No, that's all I found.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion by Brandt, is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Carey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes adopted as amended. Great, thank you so much. All right, so moving on to new business, just a quick reminder of where we left off. I thought we moved at a pretty good clip. Last time, everybody came with their ideas. Last time we covered rules 1, 11, 12, 2, 3, 5, and 6. I would suggest that we pick up where we left off, which is rule 7, please. So we are starting, thanks, Mariah. All right, no, you're good. You came right on time. So we're gonna look at rule 7, if that's okay. Rule 7 is regarding public comment. And Mariah, would you be willing to continue to take black line edits for us? Thank you for doing that. So 7.1 attendance dates. People may attend meetings in public. They may attend via remote participation. However, if remote participation is unavailable because of technological difficulties, the township can proceed with any meeting lawfully noticed under the OMA. Public right to attend meetings does not extend to closed sessions as permitted under the Michigan OMA. I think I'm satisfied with it as is. Are there comments for improvement or changes?
No.
7.2, public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board on any matter may do so during 2 public comment periods in a regular meeting, 1 public comment meeting, and a special meeting. Each speaker allowed to speak once during each public comment period for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Moderator may choose to designate a timekeeper to enforce the limits. So I know we have input here. Who wants to start?
I have a question. Why do special meetings only have 1 public comment period?
That's what the board decided. It was a subject of intense debate. Because at the time that these rules were being adopted, there was a lot of pressure there were some members on the board who wanted to reduce and limit public comment as much as possible.
Could we still have 2 for special meeting? I mean, that's just, it doesn't.
We can
it's not
set
like
whatever rule we want.
Parliamentary.
No, we can
Yeah,
set whatever
okay.
rule we want.
Well, and I think when we, okay, so this is just, I'm open to having 2
Yep. I
Yeah,
think
you're only required to have 1.
for each meeting, okay, but
we can. So I would suggest on the first line perhaps that any person wishing to address the board on any matter, I would suggest some clarifying language there to say on any matter and then include under the purview of the Board of Trustees may do so. And the reason for that is because a lot of times people have questions about, does the item have to be on the agenda for me to speak to it or not? And the kind of catch-all language I've always put on our agendas. But I don't know if people have a different idea, is just that it's your time for members to speak on any matter under the purview of the board.
I think that's pretty standard.
But what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
What do you mean by under the purview of board, like?
Yeah, and we can, this is why I want to bring it up, because we could
Yeah.
improve the language. I mean, anything, it doesn't have to be an item that's on the agenda for somebody to come speak at public comment.
But can't they also, I mean, couldn't someone also come and talk about the weather or, I mean,
They can, but I like to encourage them to be, I mean, I can't imagine a situation where we would stop somebody from speaking about the weather, but I would encourage them to speak on items
okay.
relevant.
some guidelines, I think.
Yes, so maybe that makes more sense though, to have language that says that, like something along the lines of can speak on any matter. I don't know, maybe we can draft something that says we prefer that you talk things that.
But I know that's
Yeah.
what, that's as far as I got.
I like
Setting
having
alone.
something in there, so it gives a sense of direction. And I don't think we can stop anyone from exercising their right to speak, but just to give some guidance.
And especially new people who come to the board every once in a while, they're like, how do I do this? Or do I speak now? Do I speak later? And I think it's just nice to say, like, it's on any matter. Do you
Yeah.
think we're responsible for something in the township? You can come tell us about it. How did-
And some boards do have at least one of their public comment periods is only about things that are on the agenda that evening.
We've done that before.
Yeah,
But that doesn't stop somebody from talking about the weather, even though we're guy, we can't say, no, you can't stop, you have to stop talking. Because that violates their First Amendment rights, but it's nice to have the guidelines. And
So we have had some guidelines where, it's like at the top of the agenda, you're welcome to speak on any item on the agenda. At the second public comment period, it's general public comment, as you were saying, Mariah. But what I don't like about that is then somebody who has general public comment has to wait. So I think after trying different ways, my personal preference is to just keep both open to make it as simple as possible.
I do think it's confusing though, if you say under the purview of the board, I mean, people will, that's a confusing way to put it.
That's
So,
fine. We've put it this way for 3 years. And so I welcome a suggestion at this point in time for something better. It was just the best thing I came up with, but I never asked for help. So nobody ever made any suggestions. So
I don't have any suggestion other than the language you proposed.
but if you think of something, Mariah, maybe you
I'll
can.
think on it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a comment about, may do so during the 2 public comment periods provided. I think there's some misunderstanding on the role of a moderator. That we can't just extend yet another public comment to somebody because they just happen to be here and ask for it.
I think though somewhere, what we reviewed the other day. I mean, it does say permission to speak. That other persons at the meeting shall not speak unless recognized by the chair. That does imply that the chair could allow public to speak outside of the public comment. So if that's not what you want, we probably should change that.
I think it's,
What does the
I think-
statute say?
I think it's, I think it opens
I got it.
something for,
Thanks. Barb.
it may not be fairly applied. That someone just says, well, I want to speak again. And so I suppose as a board member, I could do point of order to take a vote on that, but that seems onerous. And I would like to have language that firms up the discretionary ability to allow just anyone.
Yeah.
Especially if they just come to the meeting and say, well, I would like to speak 2 times, 3 times, or whatever.
Mhm.
It's not fair to the rest of the public nor the board to, we had such a long meeting last night that could have been done in 2 hours instead of 3.5, and that's where I'm coming from. We need more discipline in how we conduct meetings.
Yeah, also under disruptions of meetings, a supervisor may call to order any person who's being disorderly by speaking or otherwise disrupting the meetings or proceedings. And so what does that mean? I mean, it just says, please stop talking. And if you continue, what's the consequence to that?
You can ask them to leave. if
Okay.
they're disrupted.
Yeah,
That's-
thank you.
That's Mariah standing up and talking to Ian Hubert before I knew who he was, about how I was gonna have him removed.
So, back to rule 7 at point 2, I might suggest an idea. Well, first of all, is there consensus that,
Wait, it does, the language is here. Each speaker shall be allowed to speak once during each public comment period.
And are we changing it to 5 minutes?
Wait, well, let's hold
Are we
on the
having-
minute.
are
Let's
we-
hold on the minutes.
Well, even before that, the
Can
2 public
I
comments.
finish my comments, please? So to me, this does not give discretion to the moderator.
Look
to
up
the-
at the top, permission
No,
to speak,
we
5.2.
yeah. I would say here, though, one thing we've done, and we've tried different things with public comment is, one, I think that some people, whatever we set the limit at, some people who might need a little extra time to finish because of, I don't know,
Disability.
language disability, something, of course,
Sure.
or a second time to speak, or if we want to grant, like I remember when Ian was speaking, I said, I make a motion to, I don't know, allow Ian to speak 5 more minutes or something, and it was a majority vote of the board. I do think that would be reasonable. I think there's extraordinary circumstances, but I do think it's better if it's a majority vote of the board
Mhm.
to give a member of the public either an extended amount of time to speak or a second time to speak. If there's something really important that a majority thinks is helpful. I've also seen moderators of meetings unilaterally extend it in a way that a majority of the board wouldn't. So my suggestion would be that it, you know, unless by majority vote of the board, each speaker shall be permitted to speak once and only up to that time limit. What do people think about that?
And what if somebody's presenting, I guess during,
That wouldn't be public comment.
no, that would be, yeah. Okay, because we.
So each
we had a
person will get
conversation.
5 minutes each public comment period.
I would propose 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that would help solve some of the issues.
Yeah, it's worked much better.
I have no problem with 5 minutes. I was one of the citizen advocates about how it was administered by the prior board. What I am seeing, I've been moderating, and there is regular going above the 5 minutes to the 6 to the 7 minutes. I don't want to interrupt anybody, but
Right.
when I've been watching this as a pattern for the past 3 months, and it's progressively gotten laxer.
They're not gonna stop unless you tell them, because they're not paying attention.
Yeah, but who
So
tells
someone
them?
has to
I think
tell
the
Well, it
moderator.
says the moderator may designate a timekeeper to help enforce the 5-minute limit. Or not, well, 3 minute, because we
Whatever,
haven't changed
yeah.
5 yet, but yeah. So, could we go back just a couple sentences regarding the public comment period for special meetings? If it's
Sure.
only one, could we discuss or? And again, all of this has to be approved by the board, once we.
So might we change it, Jillian, during the 2 public comment periods provided in each meeting agenda?
In each
You know, regular
Regular
or
and-
special
regular or special, yes.
would be a suggestion.
Provided in each meeting agenda.
Yeah, we could just say regular or special meeting agenda, because I believe earlier we established 2 types of meetings. Regular meetings, special meetings.
This topic to me bleeds into something else that I would like to see some limits on, so you understand where I'm coming from, that we have no limits for developers to do presentations.
Right.
It goes along with the same concept. Let's try to run efficient meetings that have no ground rules, that just go on for, I don't know what reason.
Let's address that a little later this
Right,
meeting,
but
Kathleen.
it's
a
the
good-
same, it's the same point of view that, and maybe it's my own history of decades in, corporate meetings, that limits are set and there's expectations because we all have business to do. We all have work to do. I don't enjoy staying here till midnight.
Mhm.
And if I see that we're not being efficient and disciplined, then there's no reason for it.
Mhm.
A lot of it has to do with the agendas and how much we put on the agendas as well. So would you suggest if set number 7 is public comment? And then there's really not a space for, or a number for developer
My-
presentations?
My suggestion would be that we would deal with that issue under the Rule 4, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later. The agenda preparation, different types of items. That's when we can set parameters
I-
around presentation,
I watched
but
the
let's stay
meeting,
on point.
I watched
Yeah.
the meetings and your public comments go hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. It's,
Well, it depends on
So,
the subject.
believe me,
Mhm.
I'm home like, we're not even to the agenda yet,
Mhm.
so.
So,
So
Jess?
7.2, yes.
yeah, so you're suggesting under, that's right, we're not going in order of number, but,
Yes, we
just to
are
make it,
going in order.
no,
of
we're not,
number.
because we're on number 7 and we're gonna go back to number
No,
4.
we're not at
No.
number 4. I just
No, that's
gave
not what I'm
that.
saying. I'm asking Jessica, you said that for presentations for
Yeah, my
developers.
suggestion is later this meeting, we're gonna get to Rule 4.
Okay, I'm gonna.
After,
just make it-
yeah, well, and I think we talk about that later. This
Okay.
section 7 is just about public comment.
I understand, but I want to make a note.
We gave public comment 3 minutes, and if they represented a development, they got 10, if they were speaking as public.
And public hearings,
No, it was at public comment.
My question is, how long were your public hearings? Were people allowed to speak?
Yeah, there's a public comment in the public hearings.
Also 3 minutes?
I want to double check that. I think so, yes.
Well, Barb, I attended Webster Township meetings, I think it was in the PC, and we went till 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we've had, when you have a
Yeah.
hot issue, yes.
Yeah.
And public comment takes a long time of that.
So it looks like Mariah's gonna work on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees. She's gonna think of something better. And that 2 public comment periods for any of our meetings, regular, special, up to 5 meeting minutes. And then each speaker shall be allowed to speak once during each public comment period for a maximum of 5 minutes. And then there I would suggest some language that says except by board majority vote. May anybody, be allowed to, this is why Mariah's doing the editing, so we don't have to figure out the exact words right now. May anybody be allowed to speak for a second time or longer than 5 minutes?
Why would there be a need for someone to speak a second?
Well, it came up more when we had the 3 minutes because it just wasn't
People
enough
got that
sometimes.
done.
And it came up to when a moderator would, be trying to have, maybe allow some people. And so I think if we don't say who, the board majority or the moderator has the ability, if we don't state that in our rules, it's just kind of a free for all where sometimes the moderator will declare and sometimes the board majority will vote.
Yeah, or the.
So I
public
think it's-
heckling, that's another thing.
It's very occasional, but I don't know, the entire time I've been on the board, it comes up on occasion. So I think it would be helpful to state if there are exceptions, who's gonna grant it. And I would recommend it be the board majority.
And
I think that makes sense.
It's a higher standard.
So you're gonna,
how would you?
does it mean, right?
Need it.
So does it mean that you're going to stop a person at 5 minutes and then you're gonna vote to give them more time?
That's what I was wondering, like,
No,
They have to ask ahead of time?
No, this is like extraordinary. This is like really extraordinary, unusual circumstances. I think the timekeeping is up to the moderator. To say, like, if somebody's like, hey, you have 30 seconds left, or you have 5 minutes, however you want to handle it, Jillian. Or you're at time. I think that's a different issue. Like, but once somebody's at time, if they've been called time and they have more to say or say, can I say more? Then there's a majority vote of the board to say yes or no.
Okay.
Or just not say yes.
All right.
The next one says public hearing time limit. Should we just combine 7.2 and 7.3 because they're both 5 minutes? No, we
I
keep
would-
that
I would-
separate, or do they get more time?
I would prefer to keep it separate, just so that, because we always have public comment, we sometimes additionally have public hearing.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah, true.
I have a clarifying question on the public hearing. Somehow, in my head, I had this sense that, a public hearing, people could ask questions. Is there an expectation they get answers during that public hearing?
What people asking the questions?
Whoever approaches for the hearing.
I've seen it done different ways.
Yeah. So when I would attend public hearings for the planning commission or the board, I would ask questions. And I had a sense of expectation of getting an answer because it's a public hearing, you want my input. And I would never get my answers, my questions answered. Is my expectation incorrect? Should it just be a one-way dialogue?
I think it's generally a one-way dialogue.
Okay.
So I think that just like public comment, you know, I always say all the time, it's public comment, not public conversation.
Okay.
But sometimes board members respond to people. So I've seen that actually built into agendas before where it says public comment and then it says board response. And you could do that with a public hearing also, if you wanted to. You don't have to respond just because it's on the agenda, but you can.
So-
And it clarifies for people that they're not necessarily gonna get a response while other people are waiting to speak.
I've seen
Does that make
chairs do
sense?
that.
Yeah.
So when we did the public hearing on the budget, I made comments that the public can ask us questions and we will try to answer, so
Yeah.
that's.
I think we should set forth kind of what the purpose of the public hearing is. I mean, we have so many different types of public hearings, often on developments. Sometimes, once a year on budget or fire SAD or something. I wonder if this section shouldn't be called public comment and public hearing. Number 7, and if 7.3 might not be better labeled just public hearing, strike time limit.
Mhm.
And for us to develop 7.3 a little bit.
So the way I'm reading it is maybe different than the way you're reading it. I'm reading that this is the public comment under a heading of public hearing. Separate from what a public, because there's no language in here about, there's no language in here. Developer, are we talking about how long they can speak? And no, we're not gonna do that.
Not right now,
Under
we're
this-
trying to focus on this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are we going to make that a separate piece?
I think the public hearing, insofar as the public participation, I think in the public hearing, I think 7.3 we should speak to that here. And that it's not just time limit, like that it's public hearing. And I think we need to say kind of similar to what we said in public comment, right? Like, and to answer, and then board response. 7.4, we state that board may get permission from the chair to respond to issues raised during public comment. Do we want to include during public comment and public hearing? The end of the first sentence of 7.4.
That makes sense to me.
Sure.
Could we? Yeah, in the last sentence, board response is not an invitation to further public comment. And Mariah, you had, it's not, just that it's public comment, not public conversation. If we can make this clear a little bit. Well, this is our rules of order, but right, it's not, I'm thinking that this is gonna be presented to the public and it's not, never mind. Because we understand what this means.
So regarding the public hearing, I want to make a suggestion, because I've seen this be abused. Public hearing should be for the public to talk about whatever the topic is, but not the developer. And I see that being abused, that we have the developer talking at first public comment and then during the public hearing, and then they get to present. That is, I would like to limit that because to me, it's influencing the board, intentionally trying to influence the board. Let me talk about it during your first public comments. Let me talk about it during your public hearing. Let me talk about it under this agenda item that I want you to approve and then have no limits on it.
I think that's a presentation, Kathleen, and I agree with you. I think we should address that in the development of the agenda and call out presentations and specifically address. Because what we've done is we say it's a public hearing and then without even being explicit, we give developers another chance to do a full presentation at the top of a public hearing.
And I don't, yeah,
Instead of just saying, if we were being more transparent and like, just clear about what we're doing, we would say a 45-minute presentation by a developer, followed by a public hearing, And so I just think we should talk about public hearing here, and then we get to agenda. Talk about what kinds of presentations we even want.
Okay, so to, back to my point, I would like to limit participation in the public hearing to
I see.
audience, to the public that is not part of an agenda item. I don't know how to say that.
I don't know
Can
that,
we
I
stop
don't
somebody?
remember that they,
Sure you
we've
can.
had developers speaking during.
Well,
Because they still have a First Amendment right. They can come up and speak during public
well,
comment.
no, I think we have a right to limit if they're gonna talk about what's on the agenda that does impact, that we would be making a decision on. If we're gonna say I just don't,
We handles are totally different.
sorry,
We handle our public hearings totally different.
How do you answer?
Because say that developer, that's the topic. So that's why the public would come if they're interested.
mhm,
So the public hearing opens, they have a time to present. And then he would close that portion of the public hearing. Then the public has time to comment.
mhm.
They're done, and then the board has members, board members have time to comment. And then the public hearing is closed. And then we move on. So we handle it totally different,
So I would want to limit the amount of time that,
a presentation.
yes.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think
really
it's
smart.
reasonable.
Yeah, I like that.
And especially because you've generally seen the thing, you have your packet that you've already looked at, right? You have your recommendation usually from the planning commission, depending on what the project is, but yeah, I think that makes
I want
sense.
some of these standards
When it
to,
comes to the public hearings, generally already know what it's about.
So then
You know,
maybe, I'm
yeah.
kind of revising my idea, maybe we should add a new section 8, and just actually just
And public hearing separate.
have public hearing separate.
I think so.
But I would repeat 7.1 under public hearing. And I would repeat and then the 5 minutes and the board response would all apply to public hearing the same. But then maybe we can build in some of these expectations that, the moderator will open the public hearing. If there's any scheduled presentation, or opening remark or introduction, it will be limited to X minutes. And then, because it may be a budget presentation, a developer's presentation, but we could say 10 minutes or something.
Okay, and Jess, going back, you said, number 8, public hearing, but then you said, and include 7 point something.
Yeah, so my suggestion is to add a new section, 8, public hearing, to copy and paste 7.1 as 8.1. Add the 5 minutes, add the board response, but also include in there some structure to this. I also think it'd be good to kind of iron out, Jillian, how we open and close a public hearing,
Yeah, hold on.
because we do that.
Okay, but go back. So are we going to have the developer present first, then the public comments and the board deliberation like Barb had suggested? Is that,
So,
I just heard 5 minutes and then,
In a public hearing, I guess we should write these rules to be mindful of all the different types of public hearings we have, not just for developers.
right,
So
well,
they
we're
may-
right.
they may
Yes.
be like the budget or something, so I would just throw out there based on what everybody's saying is, 1, how do we open the public hearing? I believe the moderator declares it open. The clerk or moderator announces the time. If there is any I'm just making this up, if there is any scheduled presentation or introduction, it shall be limited to X minutes. What do you guys think? 10?
yes.
10 minutes for
Okay.
presentation?
Yeah, up to 10 minutes.
So a budget presentation is going to be 10 minutes.
Yes, if it's at the top of public
If
hearing.
it's,
That's what we just did a week ago. I mean, or a developer. If it's a different, throw out another number. I'm just brainstorming.
I think
I think you could have different categories of public hearing for different amounts of time. But I would say developer public hearing, 10 minutes.
mhm. I'll give you examples.
Yeah.
in the planning commission, I desperately want them to put some parameters in. Crossroads, that
Oh.
developer
I know.
on,
Oh,
Social Vines asked for 20 minutes. He went for 50 minutes
oh,
with no trying to keep people within what they just committed to.
okay, so let's go to Mariah's idea of categories. Okay, so for different types of public hearing, maybe up to 10 minutes. I'm throwing this out, 10 minutes for a planning item or up to 20 minutes for other item.
Financial 20 or?
Yes, I mean, because you guys gotta remember, we also have other sections of our agendas called reports and presentations. And so if somebody really has something beefy to tell us about, it's the top of a public hearing, really, I don't think is the
Doesn't have to be
place.
there.
And it's not the first time we're gonna be hearing about something, so it really should
Yeah,
be
that,
just a thumbnail sketch
Yeah.
of what we mostly already know by the time we get to a public hearing.
true. Yeah, that's right.
So that's why I'm comfortable with 10 minutes for any type, but I'm open to longer if you want to.
10.
I mean, I just think 10 minutes, because then we did stop leading public hearings into presentations, because they're two different things.
Yeah,
I think of the 10-minute presentation as like, here's an overview of what the issues are. Let's hear from the public.
I like it.
Any other thoughts on public hearings?
no, I like that idea of 20 minutes for other items because I'm thinking of when Chief Hood presented. I mean, I know it's in front of us, but it's a public hearing, so they're presenting to the public. And sometimes it gets pretty technical, or the different, what Chief had presented, and I don't want to. There's, and especially during a millage or
Right.
special assessment proposal.
Should we have some language that talks about with prior approval? So like if chief came and said, I can't fit my presentation into 10 minutes, could I have? And then you
Well,
would,
I like the language of maybe saying it's related to millages, because I want the public to fully understand what that millage is about.
yeah, so we could have, maybe we could have a list of exceptions. So it's
Mhm.
10 minutes except villages, township budget, maybe.
I honestly, I mean, I think we could try to anticipate all the things we think are gonna need more time because we haven't properly prepared ourselves with prior presentations.
Right.
Or we could just point to the fact that we can always suspend our rules and do something different than what we say here.
Yeah, Mariah,
Right.
I like your language, 10 minutes, 20 minutes with, and if prior approval, a longer presentation, or you said it more eloquently.
But I think we need to have something in there that says like, but not for developers. I'm not gonna put it that
Oh, right.
way, but like,
Recommendations from the planning commission, that would cover it,
yeah. Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anything coming from the planning commission?
Well, I don't even think we have, I mean, I think under our exceptions, we'll say, could get prior approval for a longer period of time, up to 20 minutes. But then I think we say for, I don't know, I'll work on it.
Yeah, and
I don't want it to be that Dan Kettler calls up and
Yeah.
calls Christie and says, I want 20 minutes. And Christie looks at the rules and says, I don't have any way to deny that. But I also don't want Dan Kettler to be able to read in here.
Right.
I shouldn't
Can
say
I-
Dan Kettler.
No,
I mean,
Can I float
just
another?
developers.
May I vote another idea? I see in other municipalities, they have rules that state. I'm not going this far, that if you want to speak, you have to tell in advance. I'm not suggesting that, but if an agenda topic wants to do a presentation, they need to state that in advance.
yeah, and that would be a presentation. That's where I think when we get to like formulating our agenda,
Yes,
if we have something that's possible action or discussion only, if one of them includes a presentation, we should know that and plan for that and manage it.
yes.
Yeah.
And you can put a time limit on, but if you're not monitoring the time, then it's ineffective.
So under presentations, a developer could say, I want to have a presentation for 30 minutes.
No,
No.
that they tell us they want to have a presentation and then we still limit the time.
So,
So we're separating that out from public hearing,
Well,
potentially.
yeah, because we have a whole bunch more.
it
go
impacts the
through.
public hearing if they've got to.
Well,
I don't want to get bogged down.
No, it's fine, but Kathleen, I do think it goes to, so let me just finish one procedural step here. So the moderator opens the public hearing, and then we've done different things. We've had the moderator declare the public hearing closed and the clerk announces the time, or we've taken a vote to close the public hearing. Which one are we supposed to do, Mariah? And can we write that down?
You don't have to take a vote to close the public hearing.
Okay. So the moderator declares the public hearing closed.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, you
And
know,
announce
and anyone else who wants to speak on, no, ready to close.
Okay,
Okay.
great. We've just done it differently, different times. And at another point, I would like to talk about how we call when we have special hearing, when we have public hearings beyond those that are, required.
What do you mean?
Well, what constitutes needing a public hearing? I mean, sort of like, I mean,
Yeah.
just down the road as we become more sophisticated, like, like ordinances, we could have first and second readings, things like that.
Social
But
assessments, that's another one we have to have public hearings. I mean, we could make a list.
because there's a lot we have to have, and then it's always our discretion as well. We could have additional public hearings. But generally, are people satisfied with public comment, section 7, and the additional enhancements to the public hearing, new section 8?
So I made a note in the board response section after the first sentence, but I made an arrow, but I didn't put a note in. So what were we thinking about adding there? So board members are not obligated to answer questions or make statements in response to issues raised during public comment.
Or public hearing?
Okay.
But going back to what Kathleen said, what do we do then when residents have questions that they would like answered?
I agree with you. It's,
I mean, you're kind of like saying, oh, thanks for coming, but I'm
Yeah, we're
sorry
just
you
gonna-
got questions.
I'm gonna stare back at you.
well, I think informally, I mean, if there's, at least what I do, and I think it's up to each board member and you too, in your role, is we take notes and, follow up after the meeting.
Well, and also what we could do is, sometimes, after the public comments, I mean, during the public comments, making notes, and if there's questions, and then we can ask any board member have an answer to the question or a question. And if everybody says no, then we just move on. That way, we're still acknowledging that they have asked a question.
So,
Or at this time, we do not have an answer.
so Jillian, that's a good idea, and that would be a change to board response sentence 2. The chair may recognize board members who wish to briefly question speakers. So you may recognize us, but what you're suggesting is that you affirmatively ask.
Yeah.
I like it. So that each time you would do that.
Yep.
I'm gonna go back to 7.2 public comment. The last sentence, the moderator may designate a timekeeper. From the prior administration, it depended on who was designated.
I know, it's a mess.
Can we change this to be something? I don't have a suggestion, but
How about a rotation? That way, because when you're keeping time, you can't really
how
pay
about,
attention, but if we rotate it, then everybody will have,
well, I don't care if it's one person or rotating, but it's really the moderator is running the meeting. It's the moderator's responsibility
Yeah.
to try to rein that in.
And I've observed that too, where it's like ultimately it's the moderator, Jillian, it's you, in this case, the moderator who needs to say, because even if somebody else is keeping time, then it's like, hey, they're at time, or, I mean, it's still the moderator. So I think it's the moderator's responsibility to keep time. I mean, and that goes up with rule 5, right? Conduct of meeting, it fits there. And then I think, as helpful, you can ask somebody to be the timekeeper.
Yeah, where's Mark Rizzo's big?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, like, that's what you need. You
Yeah.
need something that's super easy to program, that dings the person at 30 seconds. You don't even have to look at it. It dings the person at 30 seconds and it beeps at 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can
And
use that.
that's so straightforward.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so much
Yeah, Kingsley
easier
had
because
one of
it's, when
those.
you're
Yeah.
paying attention to somebody speaking, you're paying attention, and if somebody else is, what did you use at Webster? What was the?
He had a timer and it went beep, 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 beep when it was coming up to like 30 seconds.
Was
Yeah,
that
we didn't
the-
show
So it
them.
beeps, so they
Not
hear.
the obnoxious digital clock that was used.
He turned up the volume extra high.
That was-
The volume could be reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't have, but I think then it also removes it from the person who is, then you're not the person who's like, hey, 30 seconds. It's just the clock. The clock is telling the person 30 seconds. The clock is telling the person that they're done.
Oh, and the moderator then says, you're done.
Yeah, once it beeps, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do wanna hear what people say. I don't wanna have to like watch the time or anybody else that's keeping time. So I think it's just, the township purchased that timer that Mark was using.
We have no shortage of timers. So technology is not the problem here.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, we've got the little white timer we've had forever. We've got that big digital thing. I mean, that's not the issue. What I've seen kind of break down over time is the delegation by the moderator of timekeeping to someone else. Not that may not be helpful to delegate, have somebody keep time, but then you have the timekeeper saying to the moderator, and then it's just inefficient.
We need the technology that has noise, some type of noise.
Yeah, I think that 30-second noise kind of lets the speaker know like they need to wind up. Then they keep going. It's like your time's up or.
Yeah. Like,
It's hard.
Maybe we need one of those giant hooks that they used to have in vaudeville.
Yeah, I like it. Exit stage left, cartoons. No, personal experience. I would get cut off at 2 minutes and 50 seconds consistently. And someone else could go on for 11 minutes. That was abuse of authority.
So we have something that we can use already here.
I
Okay,
believe he left it here, right?
I would hope so, since, yeah.
We purchased it.
Yeah, but we definitely have the little white one. We have iPhones,
Okay.
it's,
all right, good.
all right, I would suggest if we could go to rules 9 and 10. Motions and resolutions. So this is really about our conduct. How we handle business. And I would say this section of our rules are the rules that we use the least. It was, kind of. It was more simple. There's all sorts of different, level of detail we can go in here depending on how formal. I think some of these are a little too formal and we don't always use them. But it is helpful to have these kind of laid out. So I think first of all, 9.1, this is kind of a procedural thing, Jillian. We can, figure out the motion or resolution, no motion or resolution shall be adopted until the motion or resolution is stated by the person chairing the meeting.
Yeah.
You want, I think practically, sometimes it's stated by either you or me.
Yeah, depending
Is that
on
okay?
trying to think of something that.
Cause I'm the one kind of writing it down, so often
Yeah, and
it's
you're
like, hey,
changing.
Jess, will you say it,
Yeah, that seems to be working.
Okay. So we'll say, it's,
But whatever it is, it has to be stated out loud because, Cheryl's taking the minutes now, but whoever's taking the minutes need to be writing it down. So if we state it out loud clearly, and especially if there were any amendments and that person taking the minutes has the details.
So this
Okay,
is,
but
we're
let's-
changing this
Let's
to,
not have it stated 3 times. This is back to my meeting efficiency. If it's on the recording, the recorder can pick it up.
So I just want to let you guys know, like the way we do minutes with our recording secretary is I take the motion down by hand.
Hmm.
So anyways,
But she did request that we,
she was having trouble hearing the first and the second, firsts and seconds things was her request. So, but definitely for the public, but really for the board who's voting on things. So my suggestion would be end of the first sentence to say is stated by the person chairing the meeting or the clerk. We could also, I think we say person chairing the meeting. I think we say moderator. You want to standardize those, I'd have to get my
Well,
first.
yeah, but according to statute, if I'm not chairing the meeting, then you would be until the board appoints somebody.
Right.
So chairing not chairing the person chairing the meeting, I mean, that's just, we don't
Yeah.
really need to change that.
Okay. I think the second sentence is okay. It's not something we do very often, but we may. I wondered about the request to recess for the purpose of writing out a motion or resolution shall be in order.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Why is the second sentence in here? When you were when you were in the board of, or creating the rules of order back in 2021, why, all motions except procedural motions and resolutions may be required to be in writing upon the demand of any member.
That's typical in rules. That's if something's gotten so convoluted and I say something really complex, really fast out loud, somebody may say, hold your horses. I want that in writing for clarity.
But you write it down. You already would write it down.
But if Christie blurts something out at the board table and it's super convoluted, before I'm comfortable voting on it, I might say, hey, I want to see that in writing.
and you would have her write it down.
Yes,
So
That's what you're saying.
and I've done that with John,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
True, okay.
I'm confused about the sentence structure
Yeah.
here. So all motions except procedural motions and resolutions. But really, is it all motions and resolutions may be required? And the except procedural motions should be in parentheses or commas, I mean?
I think we could strike except procedural motions. I don't
Say
think
all
there's,
motions and resolutions
yeah.
may be required.
I think it's confusing. What's a procedural? What isn't?
also, I'll just note a request to recess. I do want to address in this section. I want to add under 9.4 recess. And how we determine if we're taking a recess or not. That's always been fuzzy. But back to 9.1, a request to recess for the purpose of writing out a motion or resolution shall be in order. I would say, is there a way to just like not recess the meeting, but just take a minute to like write it out? I mean, why would we actually recess the meeting to write it out? I would just say, hey, everybody, everybody be quiet for a minute while I write this down, instead of like disbanding.
I think it depends on how detailed your motion or resolution is, but I
Yeah.
also think that there's never anything wrong with giving people a break from the table. So I'll leave it in.
In resolutions, we generally don't make we don't create them in a board meeting. It's something that we do outside of.
can.
Yeah, we can, but they can be quite detailed.
Yeah, but we can.
Whoever done that?
I have.
How about change the language from instead of shall, maybe in order, a request for recess for the purpose of writing may be in order. So that once in a while you want to do it.
Well, it shall be in order, Kathleen, but I think the request may or may not be made. I guess it just depends on how you look at it. What do you think, Mariah?
I think it's fine either way.
Okay,
Okay.
and then somebody writes it out. and then I read it.
Yeah, which goes back to the other one where to read out loud.
So that was, that's it's usually a verbal one. This is specific to anything that's been written. And does this apply to consent agenda items, 9.1? Or should it? Because I will reflect, I really like our use of consent agenda.
Yeah.
I really do. But at the same time, a lot of people, and they should read the packet, but a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know that happened. I did wonder, should we require us to just read the model motions in consent before we take action?
No,
Okay,
if they haven't read the board packet, I mean,
that's fine,
And-
then this conflicts,
Yeah.
so let's clarify.
and they can always pull it from consent, so we can
Yeah.
have more discussion and that would be read.
So 9.1 currently conflicts with our current practice.
Okay, so we
How?
have
Shall be adopted except
consent.
for items on consent.
If you
Oh,
don't
I
put
see.
that
Each
language
written-
in.
Well. What part are you talking?
9.1.
The last sentence.
The first sentence of 9.1.
Each written motion or resolution. We don't have a written motion to.
The
approve.
first sentence is not limited to those that are written.
How about,
But the motion is to adopt the consent agenda, or to approve the consent agenda. It's not, what's the motion?
The motion is each model is to adopt the model motions within each of those. I mean, the consent agenda as amended, it's sort of
Okay.
the package, and that's how we publish it in the minutes and in the synopses.
Okay, so except for consent agenda
Yes.
items.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yes. Got it.
Mhm.
People ready to talk 9.2? A definition, and this comes up so frequently.
Mhm.
Whenever a question is under debate, first of all, we have different interpretations of when a question is under debate. And I just want to say, sometimes we have an agenda item that we're talking about. That's talking about an item. And then if a question is under debate, I think that that is when there is a motion that is seconded on the table. What do you all think? What does question under debate mean to you?
I would say when it's seconded on the,
Okay. So when a question is under debate, a question does not mean that we're discussing an item. A question means there's a first and seconded motion on the table. That's okay. I just want to make sure we're clear before we delve into this.
That's when you discuss it, right? After you have a first and a second, and then you discuss.
Well, but we can also discuss before there's a motion
But you don't have a question before you, until after a motion.
with a second. So question under debate. Okay, great. So it's really like no other motion shall be received except a motion too.
oh, no, to include other. Yeah, that makes more sense.
So let's make sure we each understand what these mean.
Sure.
Adjourn. Meeting stops.
no,
We can
And
go home now.
meeting's adjourned. Recess, motion to recess.
that's the same as a break, sort of.
Break.
Okay. Clear the floor.
I have
What does
no
that
idea.
mean?
Hit the deck, I don't know.
Motion to clear the floor is like when the procedural, when the conversation, what we're doing, what the motion is, it's been friendly amended so many times. We aren't sure what we're doing.
Oh,
I just may say like a motion to clear the floor,
You start again.
where it's like,
start over.
yeah, you clean this, you kind of clean the table off of all the mess that's on there.
So it's the beginning of the conversation again?
Basically.
It's basically
okay.
whatever mess of a motion or motions we have on the table. I have become sufficiently confused. I might blurt out, just motion to clear the floor.
Are you gonna start over?
Yeah, it's like a do-over.
Mhm.
I thought it was a bomb threat, to tell you the truth.
That's what I was saying, hit the deck.
A motion to vote immediately, I believe that's one and the same as call the question.
Call the question, yeah.
I like the words vote immediately because it's a little more clear. I think it's also the same as a motion to end debate. Lay on the table.
Yeah, who wants to do that?
I don't know what that is.
It's the same as tabling, right?
Lay on the
Let me
table.
see.
That means to table it, it's not, it's different than postpone. Postpone, you have a date, but table, it could just kind of fizzle
sit out
or wait, or maybe down the road, 10 years, somebody brings it back, or it's,
I would suggest we strike lay on the table since none of us know what it means.
well, I like postpone to a certain time better than lay on the table, because lay on the table just, you're kind
Well-
of dismissing it without,
But it's two totally different actions.
yeah.
Exactly.
I say tabling.
So I think lay on the table is different than tabling.
You do?
You do.
I do, but maybe, I mean, maybe that's why I'm confused. If it's not, then I'm not confused.
The same.
Okay,
Let me look.
I thought,
To temporarily postpone consideration of a matter, usually in a formal setting, blah, blah, blah.
oh, okay. So yeah, let's just say table. Let it
Well,
lay on the table.
Then we have postponed to a certain time.
Right.
Two different things. One is indefinite, the other one is definite.
So are we gonna call it lay on the table still, or just table?
I think we should say table.
It's a table.
Yeah, the other one's kind of.
And I think table,
Is it a motion or an item?
Well, just, you could
Doesn't
just
have
say
to be a
motion,
motion,
you
does
could
it?
just say table.
table, and then when we table, when do we table until?
Just they should decide it at that meeting, depending on the item.
Well, I think that's the difference between
Table and-
postponing and then
Yeah.
tabling. So tabling, you don't set a new
Okay.
time.
Yeah, trying to think of an example.
And Mariah,
Okay.
could you add little descriptions to these, like just plain language, like descriptions to these? Cute. So table is like, hey, I'm gonna table this, I'm just putting this on.
Well, it could be, we're talking about maybe, a project. We really like the project, but we don't have time to get to the project. Let's lay it on, table it, and then we'll come back maybe in the future.
So I do believe later on, we have rules related to what goes on to unfinished business. So let's be mindful of that when we get to rule 4 about postponing or tabled items. Just to flag that.
You mean to acknowledge that something, so that when we put it under unfinished, we can say this was tabled at this time.
I just want to make sure if we're using, I guess, one, is it necessary to use both tabled and postponed? It's fine with me. I just want to make sure that we have a clear track on how we're handling those items. So that we don't allow ourselves a free pass to just kind of put things off. But it sounds like that's kind of what the
It's the-
difference is.
It's the intention.
So the intention of tabling is like I'm tabling. Postpone means I have an intention to take action in the future.
Yes,
And we have
Okay.
to give,
like postpone
Provide
to
a
the
date.
next meeting or 2 meetings forward.
Okay. And then amend, we say friendly amendment a lot. Should we acknowledge that we allow friendly amendments without a full
Versus-
vote?
Versus hostile amendment.
Well, a friendly amendment, so it's with the consent of the person who offers it and the person seconding without a vote.
I think amend is fine if somebody wants to state it as friendly.
But amend requires a vote on the amendment before the vote on the full motion. A friendly amendment allows you to say, Like if you first did something and Barb seconded it,
Okay,
and I have a friendly amendment, and you're like, yeah, I'm good, and you're like, yeah, I'm good, then it's amended without a vote. Do we
Okay.
want to allow ourselves to do that or not?
I don't know, so we have a motion, we've amended it. And, but then Barb says, nah, could we, add in this word as a friendly amendment, but should still vote.
You would say, so you would say,
Or-
say you made a motion and somebody suggested a amendment to it.
Yeah,
So you
okay,
say, Jessica, are you agreeable to that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Then the person that seconded it, you say, are you agreeable to that friendly amendment? And if they say yes, then you can vote on the motion without doing first one amendment and the whole thing.
so
We do it all the time.
yeah, the friendly amendment, it comes from a different person that wasn't part of the original amendment.
Yeah, so it's,
Right.
it
Yeah, it's a
doesn't,
suggestion from,
it's a suggestion, it doesn't have to be a motion that's been amended, just say you have a motion. And somebody wants to thinks they have a friendly amendment, something that's not going to be controversial, that may not require a vote, as long as the first and second are.
John Reiser will do it, suggest,
Yeah.
something be clarified a little bit more.
but it's up to the person who made the original motion to accept it or
And
not.
and the person that seconded has to be agreeable to it.
So I do think that we should just acknowledge that we permit friendly amendments.
Sure.
So I am looking at the sorry, I gotta go back to tabling. I'm looking at the
Yeah,
Roberts rules,
yeah.
short version.
Yeah.
And what Robert says is, if the motion is not taken from the table by the end of the next meeting, it's dead. So that's a different, that's
See,
a
that
different
has meaning.
interpretation than, yeah, it
That
does.
has very specific.
It does have.
So that would be, so actually the postpone to a certain time would be to give you a longer period of time. Tabling would just be to the next meeting.
Oh, okay, now that makes sense.
That goes backwards.
Table to next meeting and under unfinished is what our rules currently say, but we can.
That makes sense.
So are we gonna
That's
change
clearer.
the
Yeah.
language
better.
to say to table to the next meeting?
I'll add something in there.
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Under unfinished business. That makes sense.
Well, Kathleen, here's something for you from Robert's brief rules. You're tired of the current discussion. You may move to limit debate to a set period of time or a set number of speakers. That requires a 2/3 vote.
I'll try to remember that.
Well, I will say this table is really nice. Mariah, if you wanna.
Oh, so it could be,
This
we
is
just need
nice.
to do a little bit more investigation before we actually make a vote on it or make a decision. Yeah, that makes sense. And then postpone to a certain time is. Yeah,
So with
okay.
many hands basically tabled to your next meeting and you're taking action on it.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
We probably said till March 25th.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think that next meeting.
Next regular meeting. Okay, so then 7, let's see, do we agree on the order there, or sorry, on the order at the bottom of 9.2? These motions shall take precedence in the order in which they are stated above.
So, Mariah had gone back to the table, but we were
Right.
still talking about the friendly amendment, so we're gonna have a bullet in there or a.
That's gonna be something separate because it's not part of the order of motions. But yes, I'm
Oh.
gonna put something in there.
So Jillian, do you understand what that sentence means? These motions shall take precedence in the order in which they are stated above, because I don't think it's super clear.
So we're good, these motions shall take precedence in order in which they are stated above, so. Anytime during a meeting, somebody can say, or we can say adjourn, and then the rest of it. I mean, no, this doesn't make sense.
It didn't make sense to me either.
Yeah, so the intention, it is poorly written, but the intention is that when a question is under debate, again, there's a motion seconded on the table. Then I'm not gonna provide any other motion except these are the only ones I can state. But let's say that I say a motion to adjourn and Barb seconds it. And Kathleen blurts out a motion to amend and Christie seconds it. This is instruction to Jillian to say the motion to adjourn takes precedence. We're going to have that motion first. I
So-
mean, you shouldn't, but I think that's what it means.
1 hour
By
into the
precedent.
meeting, somebody
I
can
think
say, I
so.
have a motion to adjourn.
No, if there's a motion on the table, well, yeah, we can say anything at any time and do anything we want that's on or off the agenda. I mean, we've demonstrated that over the years.
Can I just, normally Jessica, you lay it out and this is very confusing.
I didn't write this.
I know.
Yeah, this was homework.
Even your interpretation, I was like, oh, she's trying, look at her.
I'm trying. I mean, this,
I mean, I get it, but I just think
Can you
it's.
just take it out?
Yeah, it's very messy.
yeah, then let's just take it out.
Take out adjourn.
You have,
The
you're
last-
you're working on your
Yeah.
rules of order.
Yeah.
In the order in which they are
You
stated.
can see Christie like.
Is that a motion? I'm gonna adjourn.
So then it kind of ties into 9.3, which maybe we should just combine. But all it's stating is all of those above motions, 9.2, are non-debatable. Which we should just say in 9.2, we should say order motions, any of these except a motion debate, and they are non-debatable.
Yeah, so then why do we have them, why do we have a adjourn and shouldn't they have, wait a minute. Motions to adjourn, to clear the floor, to recess, to and all questions relating to prior. All right, so this goes back to, part of this goes back to, so there's a motion on the table. Does this have anything to do with discussion? Where should discussion be? Because if there is all of these are non-debatable, of course, so you're not gonna debate about them, but if you
That
have
means
a,
no discussion
right, but when is there discussion though?
on other types of motions, like on the main motion. So, you know, I make a motion to, you know, hold a township circuit or township hall. Kathleen seconds, we're discussing that. But these are a category of motions that are non-debatable, on which there shall be no discussion.
What do you think this means shall be ordered and voted upon? What's the shall be ordered?
That's what the last sentence of 9.2 was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Is
Shall be ordered.
the moderator is responsible for taking them in order. In this order. Now, I think it's first come, first served, because you've got a motion on the table, but I think when you have a main motion on the table, you could have multiple procedural motions that come in quick order. I think that's the scenario. I've never seen it happen at the township board table.
So
So it's saying those motions listed, there's no discussion on them, is what it's saying, right?
Correct.
not all.
That's
of
all it's
them.
really saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what that's what
And
was
order.
confusing to me. Definitely.
See you looking at me, but I
So no, and ordered. I think the ordered thing is something we need to look a little more into, because clearly there was an intention in here, which is lost on all of us.
yeah, and I think Jillian is like saying adjourn, why is adjourn first? So we need to understand that.
I don't think we do. I think should put it in the order that we want.
I'm
That
just
makes
thinking
sense,
it's
though.
saying there's no discussion to these motions.
That's correct. That's
Okay,
exactly what it's
that's
saying.
all it's saying?
All it's saying is someone makes a motion to do something to table. Stop the discussion and vote on it.
Yeah,
But what if they're? Okay, but
Yeah, that
so
I
when are we
understand.
gonna have the discussion though?
You
Because
still have the.
There would-
when?
but before, so there's a main motion to do a township circus at Township Hall.
But wait a minute. Mariah said earlier that you can have a discussion before motions or after
We
motions.
can do either.
Okay, but we won't be able to if this is non-debatable motions, there's no other discussion for these.
Because you're bringing it, I mean, for example, the tabling, you're bringing it back at another time. and you would have your discussion
Yeah.
then. So
I like
Kathleen might
non-debatable
say,
motions.
Kathleen might say, I don't think that this item is ready and I'm making a motion to lay it on the table.
You probably.
And then you would
Oh.
vote whether or not to lay it on the table. If you denied
Yeah,
that, or if you rejected that motion, you would still do it. But if you agreed, then it would come back later and you'd have your discussion later. So part of it is just to keep things moving.
Yeah, okay.
Like, and
Voting immediately, clear the floor.
so when a question is under debate, that is the discussion, Jillian, on the main motion. 9.2. We're talking about, should we have a circus at Township Hall? We're debating it. And Kathleen's like, motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah,
Barb's
yeah,
like,
it's under
second.
debate,
We're
but then,
done.
but then we go non-debatable motions to adjourn, but we have adjourn under order of motions whenever a question is under debate. So I think that's what's confusing me is that maybe we should need to remove adjourn from order of motions.
No, so this is the thing that's confusing. Like Jessica said, there's a motion on the table to have a circus at Township Hall. You then can't say, I make a motion to have a fire truck at the circus.
Oh, right, okay.
But Kathleen could make a motion to table that circus idea. And then you just vote on that motion to table the circus. So while there's something active, these things can still be brought as motions, but you can't bring a new topic motion.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, that does make sense.
They're procedural motions, and maybe we should label it such.
Yeah.
Order of procedural
Yeah.
motions.
Yeah.
Order of non-debatable procedural motions.
Yeah,
I like them.
I think they all should be in there. I can think of examples. We're having our meeting. There's a fire in utilities. I make a motion to adjourn.
Or,
There's the discussion about the circus. And we've addressed it every which way we can.
motion to postpone indefinitely.
Right. Motion to
Friendly amendment.
postpone, just to keep the meeting efficient and say, okay, let's not talk about this forever.
Right, and we don't talk about the motion to postpone or adjourn. You just call the roll
Right.
or call the
Okay.
voice.
And if nobody agrees with me, I won't get seconded. Or if people agree with me, you vote, and you go, yeah, well, okay, let's keep talking about it.
Right.
No problem.
So order of, Jess, you said order of non-debatable procedural motions? Was
Yeah,
that the
Mariah's gonna work on the language and add
Order of
little definitions.
procedural.
I'll work on it.
Order of non-debatable
But-
procedural motion.
I do think that is a good order. I think the order is logical.
Now that I came up with a potential reason to adjourn.
Now, 9.3
Yeah,
makes
these
sense.
These are not all non-debatable though,
Right.
They're not,
according to the next list.
That's what I was
Postpone and
talking about.
amend, right, are not on the next, on the 9.3 list.
Okay. Now we're clear then.
Of, okay, 1:30 and I've had one meeting after another. We'd like to eat before the next meeting.
okay.
Let's, almost 20 after.
How about the,
Could I have a motion? Could I have a motion to adjourn? Or I have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? And it's non-debatable.
I see no second.
I can't.
I do wanna just suggest, I hear you and I wanna wrap up. I wanna, suggest that we first, set our next meeting date.
Okay.
And then I'd like to just see if we can get to some final guidance to Mariah for Rule 9. Okay, so, next meeting date, what works for everybody?
So. Okay, but we want to go through 9.4.
I'd like to first get a next meeting date. And then get some general guidance, because I think we've had a good discussion about 9. I just want to button it up.
Which will be 10, right?
So,
Yes.
Are we gonna stick with the Tuesday?
what works for folks? Does Tuesday work?
Well, generally
no.
I'm here on Tuesdays, so Tuesdays are good for me, but.
It works for me.
Okay, how far out would you go? Next week?
I think we're supposed to be done by the 25th, right?
Yeah. How is Tuesday at 10? I mean, Tuesday, March 11th,
We
Okay.
have our attorney meeting at 10.
okay? Would you all like to do it at 11 or 12?
Well, we
I
can
have to leave here by 1 o'clock next Tuesday.
You know, I have,
Could we do it at 11?
no, I'm not going to that day because I have board of review. I have two big chunks and then going to the board of trustees. I don't want to pack in more on my day.
Okay, how's Monday, March 10th?
I can do any time before 1 o'clock.
I have board of review, DDA.
What is board of review in the morning?
To the 19th.
Oh, that is on the 19th. I have board of review
So-
from 10 to 1 and then from 2 to 5.
How about Tuesday, March 12th? I mean, Wednesday, March 12th.
That's
I
all.
have a deposition all day.
Oh, fun.
Thursday, March 13th.
I can never do a Thursday, I'm so sorry.
Okay, Friday, March 14th.
Clients all day on Thursdays.
That works for me.
Yes, I can do something before 1 o'clock or after 2.
Okay, how about 10 o'clock, Friday, March 14th?
10 o'clock.
Any objections?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, 10 a.m., Friday, March 14th will be our next meeting. And then I would just suggest that, you know, on this, the rules on procedural motions, if we ask Mariah to kind of give some guidance on kind of reworking this whole section, I think, on which ones are non-debatable, which are debatable. What would be the purpose of debating a procedural motion besides just needless argument? And then just kind of reformatting this section. Is everybody satisfied if Mariah comes back then with additional changes to sections 7 and 9? And then at the next meeting, we're gonna pick up with rule, we'll go to 10, 4, and 8.
Okay.
Okay?
No objections.
All right, and then with that, I would like to suggest we do public comment. At this point, there's no public present. Online, please raise your hand. Hi, Rob and Pam. Rob, you're up. I mean, Pam, you're up. Sorry, Pam.
Thank you. Ladies first. Um, so you all have a LASA meeting at 9 a.m. Friday the 14th, just saying.
Oh, wait a minute, this should be.
And then regarding the timer, I've got a suggestion. As one who felt that their time was shortened, I believe by the difference of opinion of the timer thinking that they were ready to start the timer, but the speaker was not quite ready. So there you get that variation. My
Mhm.
suggestion is go ahead and put the timer on the table that the resident speaks at and say that push the timer and you may begin.
That's nice. Like it.
What about?
There you go.
Great, thank you.
That way you are engaging the person and it's not them against you or you against them. It is a mutual agreement. Thank you.
Good idea.
So there was a comment.
I'm sorry, we're gonna go through public comment, and then there can
Okay.
Oh,
be,
yeah.
response, one moment.
Yes, thank you.
Next up, Rob Pattinson. Hi, Rob.
Hi, gang. Thank you very much for doing this. This is a much gentler and much kinder rules of order. The initial rules of order in 2021 was about boxing out the clerk and excluding residents. And this is much more welcoming, much more gentle, and that has been greatly needed for 3.5 years. Thank you for doing this. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any feedback, public comment?
Oh, yeah, that, I like the idea of having the timer on the table, but for the public comments, but what about on Zoom?
Right, well, there's, with the new technology, there's different things we can do once we get the streaming. There's a built-in timer, but again, Christy and I can work with our IT people. I don't have an immediate solution, but, you know, for,
Sounds good.
is there a motion to adjourn?
Carrie.
Motion by Carrie, is there support?
Also,
All right, support by Brandt, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, meeting adjourned at 1:24. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for organizing this.
You are welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Roxanne. Bye.